Unleash the power of your mind. Wear a levity, raw, edgy, humorless apparel for the discriminating activists. Live free or cry. Welcome to another episode of Mind Matters, the talk program that provokes critical thinking, logic, and reason. We encourage all of our listeners to use their common sense in all of their decision making, especially if it involves an issue that you think is important or one that affects your liberties and God-given rights. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Mind Matters with my partner in audio and video crime, Mr. Dan Ploger, Army veteran and deep thinker, critical thinker, a guy that uses his logic and reason. And thank you for coming back. But Dan, good to see you, brother.
Yeah, good to see you, John.
Got an exciting episode today. We've been hearing a lot about slavery reparations, primarily right here in North America, in the U.S. And that's what we're going to discuss today for a few minutes, putting aside any political bias or any ways that we personally feel about it, and looking at this objectively. And without even going into great detail, the concept itself, Dan, of slavery reparations, give us your opening thoughts on
that. It's a horrendous fantasy that I would expect most 6th and 7th year olds to have grown out of.
Yeah, well, that's deep right there. And yeah, we always talk about fantasy, which is away from logic and reason. And I would say and add to that, it would be impossible to calculate. And the amount and who gets it and who pays for it and how we decide that. And then what's the intent? I mean, what's really the intent of slavery reparations? That in and of itself, is it to get more votes? Is it to give people something that they truly don't deserve? We've heard the concept coming along in our lives. There's no free lunch. And you mentioned 6 and 7 year olds getting over it. Isn't it time to move on in our position and station in life and not make it about color and make it about the individual? I mean, even at a deeper level.
Well, I would sure think so. I don't know the answer to your other question. I don't know what it would accomplish. I wonder if your great grandfather would say, who was a slave, would say, John, that would recognize that, hey, the black folks are getting paid money because their ancestors were slaves, but you're not. I wonder what your great grandfather would say about that.
No, it's a great question because, being Slavic, right, on my dad's side, we know about the white slave trade that nobody wants to talk about. And for 900 years, my own ancestors were traded with Persians and Bedouins and African tribes, the Barbary pirates. And wow, wouldn't I be entitled to something? I mean, even though I'm white, and what race on the planet hasn't at one time enslaved each other? Think about the descendants of the pyramids. The people who built those it was built under slavery, and the people that enjoyed the pyramids. I mean, where does this end? I mean, wouldn't we bankrupt the planet if everybody was entitled to reparations from our ancestors who were enslaved? And I don't know, man. It's crazy beyond crazy.
Well, yes, of course it would bankrupt the planet, but that's not what this is about. It's about creating victims. And victimhood is the current favorite pathology of the day. And, we've run through stages where depression was the favorite pathology, ADD, it was a favorite pathology. It just so happens that reparations is the greatest pathology of today. And in 6 months, people will come to their senses and realize that it is what it is. And it's something I wish there was a pill for, but the psychiatrists and psychologists can work on that.
Yeah, and it always comes back to that. You raise a really good point about the flavor of the day, the bling bling of the day, and what people are going to utilize to, what I would say, get over or make some easy money. And then it always gets down to, with our politicians and our bureaucrats, the money doesn't grow on trees. It comes from somewhere. And this is probably a whole other episode or two. But the people that end up paying for schemes like this are working class people who are actually toiling at some profession somewhere, making money, paying their taxes, and then they've got to take what they've sweat for, and our bureaucrats are going to give it to somebody to maybe pander for a vote or to create that victim. And that in and of itself may be another reason for all of this, to deplete even further the working class people, the middle class.
Well, I don't know. I don't think that whoever came up with reparations was a deep enough thinker to think that far ahead, John.
Yeah, probably not. And I have to admit, nowadays we're in this world of pre-COVID and post-COVID. Whatever that means. I guess it's whatever it means to you, but it seems to a lot of people these days that we talk to, including ourselves, that it seems like the whole world, with the digital tools we have at our fingertips, has just gone bonkers. I mean, it's like, what are we going to wake up today that we just scratch our head and put some critical thought to it and go, holy cow, that makes absolutely no sense at all. I mean, it's like we are in a global digital ideological free-for-all, and there's no sense of responsibility or dignity or even etiquette being extended to each other. It's just, we can cancel somebody if they don't agree with us. I mean, have we gotten to a stage in humanity where we're at the brink of something either really good or not so good? What do you think about that, man, with where we're at right
now? I don't know, John. I don't know where people are coming from on these things. The whole concept to me is a caricature of itself. It's kind of like I don't know, the ladies on The View. They're like watching Roger Rabbit cartoons to me. I can't believe that these are real human beings that behave in this manner. But my gosh, I guess I'm out of touch, John. It just escapes me.
Yeah. So that being said, so is the old school dead? The old school that had tolerance and etiquette towards each other, and not always, but this respect for each other, and the ability for us to see people from where they're coming from. And have we entered this new school where intolerance is the rule of the day, and say what you feel, do what you want, who gives a flying, you know what I'm trying to say, who cares about what others feel? It's all about me and how I feel, and hey, I'm the victim here. By the way, my great 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 grandfather sister was kidnapped by a bunch of Barbary pirates, and they were traded in Morocco to some rich black families in Ghana. I want something for it. I mean, where does this go? It's crazy.
Well, I think the video that we looked at kind of explains that a little bit. It's about creating victims. It's about creating a pathology. It's about creating a fantasy like the trans fantasy that we're all going through right now. That reality is false, and there is no such thing as objective reality. And no two of us can agree that any one phenomenon is truthful or not truthful. So the postmodernist concepts of Marxist totalitarianism, and these are things that a lot of people find very exciting. But to be on a little serious note, is we've forgotten that with rights and privileges come responsibility, and nobody's acting out their responsibility. The concept of reparations, who's responsible for paying the reparations? Who is it? Is it, all white guys? Just white guys that don't have Northern or Southern European descent. Where you draw the lines becomes so critically it's such a fundamental part of the whole discussion, and it's an impossible part of the discussion. So no one wants to address it because you can't address it. What San Francisco and Governor Newsom of California, they want to award every black family with $5 million. Great. Where's it come from? Who pays for it? Whose pocket does that come out of? Well, we don't really, doesn't come out of anybody's pocket because we don't have to have money to pay. All we got to do is print money. Well, sorry, you need to go back to economics school because that means it just comes out of everybody's pocket. So again, we're faced with a profound lack of ability to think critically, a profound lack of the ability to look at ourselves and see ourselves as others see us. And gosh, people, before you go pushing for this, grab a hold of yourself and just recognize this for the fantasy that it is, because it's something that could never happen, will never happen, and all it will do at the very most will be inflame hidden feelings of racism that exists on both sides.
And globally.
Right.
Yeah.
It's white, black, Asian, African, and everything, man. It's just we got to get over this. That the color of this tells you what club I belong to. This tells you what religion I am. This tells you everything you need to know about Dan Ploger.
Wow, that's heavy. It's deep. It's relevant. It's real. And I would just, to pile on in a second those notions. You mentioned it a little while ago. First of all, we will share in the show notes the link to that video that Dan was referencing, called Easy Money. It's pretty good. You have to watch it. But also, you said a little while ago about 6 and 7 year olds and fantasy, and I would just support what you say. And I would say, to people out there listening, or people who are stuck in the victimology mindset, which is 6 or 7 years old, take responsibility, grow up, get out of a fantasy world, be real. Don't fall for somebody's narrative that is used there for maybe some nefarious intentions. But, unless you can get beyond the feeling of victimology, you're going to fall for every freaking narrative that comes down the pike. And guess what? The world and living a life is more than just narratives and being angry and being divisive. It's about gratitude and tolerance and all the things that make living a life as a human being better. So thank you, Dan. Any final thoughts?
No, let's just move on, folks.
That's it. Move on. You're not a victim. Thank you for listening. And Dan, we'll see you next time.
Goodbye, John.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Mind Matters. Remember, your mind matters, but only if you use it. Stay alert. Stay alive. Keep your eyes wide open.